The Outsiders Project, giving voice to the unheard.
Hi and welcome to the Outsiders Project podcast. We show that people sidelined from society can write, perform and create work of exceptional quality. Find us on social media, look for the Outsiders Project Boscombe. And here comes the content warning. It's outsider art, so thankfully it always has strong content. I'm Nell Leyshon, the artistic director of the project, and today I'm talking to one of our artists, Gary Pierre. Gary Pierre. We've been working together for 17 years, which is kind of extraordinary. When you entered the room the very, very first time, you came and hunted out my creative writing workshop. And just to give a sort of taste of where you are now, you're actually at Birkbeck at university doing a creative writing degree. And it's really hard to explain sort of what a massive, massive journey that's been, isn't it? And what an extraordinary thing it's been that we've both witnessed, really.
Yeah, as you're talking about, I'm thinking about, so what led me there? And it was a flyer on a neglected pinboard. You know, there wouldn't have been much on it. It would have been a pretty lonely little flyer. And it said Creative Writing Workshop. And I hadn't long been in Bournemouth. And I was trying to build a life that didn't involve any of the stuff I did before I got here. And all of that was to do with nonsense anyway, crime and drugs and crime and drugs and crime and drugs. So, and it's lovely not to live like that, but it's also really difficult to have no identity, and so I'd made friends, so I wasn't lonely and isolated, and it weren't destitution. I'd made friends, and they played golf or snooker or football or watched football, did this, and none of it was very interesting for me. I mean, I did it because there was, it was that or sit alone. And so then I saw that flyer. It's funny, it looks really colourful, but in my mind, I can see a real colourful flop, but I know it's not. I know it wasn't. I don't know what I was expecting. Probably in my head, because I live in a dream world, and I probably expected a big building full of teachers, and it was its life previously was a radio station, hospital radio station, charity shop, I'm sure, and with Vita Nova, which was written on it. I still don't know what that means.
New life.
New life.
Latin for new life. And so you came and the workshop was held in a shop. And actually we're in another old shop now, aren't we?
Yeah,
So
but this is quite much grander.
Shop to shop. Yeah, it was a small shop. And I remember the door opening and you appeared and you said, "Is this where the creative writing workshop is held?" And I said, "Yeah, it's just started," and kind of made you sit down and you joined in. Then you wrote a piece. The following week you came back and you'd written something. And you pulled it out of your pocket at the end like it was some kind of magic trick and read it out. And it was this extraordinary opening. I thought it sounded like a novel, frankly. I mean, it was just an opening of a burial, of a graveside. It was completely brilliant. Billy Bright. It was all about Billy Bright. And you read it, and then I asked to look at it after. And you showed me the piece of paper. You unfolded it and showed it to me. And I remember it was just so extraordinary that you knew exactly what the rhythms were of how to read it, but there were no punctuation marks at all, were there? It was just a block of text, but you knew exactly what you were doing.
Not much has changed. I'll put things in now, just so they're there. I don't know why I'm putting them. But I haven't asked someone, to really break down why people say it, because it's really simple to them. But it's not to me.
No, it's not. In my experience, I've worked a lot with people who've come late to literacy, and actually it just takes a long time to learn it. You learn it, but it just takes a long time, and you do need things explaining. So we've worked together. So you've been writing on and off all that time. Is that right?
Yeah, bits and bobs.
And performing?
Yeah, I've performed my own work.
And the first piece that you did with the Outsiders Project, so you and I had this long working relationship going back, and we did a piece called Vodka Hunters. What did you write about for that?
I suppose I wrote about my life, or aspects of my life, moving around and, very unstable and arriving in Bournemouth.
Finding a new life. I just wonder, is that you talked about this sort of, you have to start a new life from when you came here. It's almost like it was a blank piece of paper.
It started in prison. That was the first step. I was a drug user. But I was a petty criminal before I was a drug user, from a working class background that tended to connect with other working class, not to sort of a criminal class. I come from I found myself being attracted towards people who thought work was a silly idea, kind of whose morals was back to front. So before I come to Bournemouth, my heroes were bad and good people were not very good. Were complete, people who were brave and had courage and stood up for what they believed in society, I thought were complete idiots. They had jobs, there was like a servant.
Were you taught to think that?
I think so.
So it was a sort of model that you absorbed?
No, my dad was that way. My dad didn't pay for anything unless he had to. And my dad believed he was being robbed. So it was okay for him to rob. Because he believed that society robbed you. It constantly overcharged and pushed to try and get more out of you. So, he only bought what he had to buy. If he could find a way of getting it without paying, he would. And
so when you say that the process started in prison, did you do any writing?
No, I just made a decision to change. And so what I hadn't realised is those people I talked about before I took drugs, who were criminals, and prison systems it's the same faces. It's not a whole new batch every year. It's a revolving door. And the more I got into drugs, that's what I did, And people used to say hello to me, and I wasn't really interested what they were doing. I was only interested in the people who used drugs. When I'd stopped using drugs, after about a week, those people who I connected with, who were drug users, I had no use for them. So they no longer spent time with me. And then the horror was that all the criminals who look down their noses at people who take drugs, they hadn't had anything to do with me for years. I just didn't know. Until once I'd stopped hanging around with the junkies, then there was no one. And it was a dark, because the people who sort of, run little gambling books and smoke marijuana and, gathered in little groups in each other's cells, I hadn't realised I was not wanted in that world because I didn't want to go in it.
So it was a real feeling of starting again, and I think that came over in the piece, in the Vodka Hunters piece. The next piece that you did with the Outsiders Project was Secret Voices as well. And you had a very big part in that, really sort of holding the show together performance-wise and writing. I just wonder, is it possible for us to hear something of your writing from that?
I really wanted to say something profound and entertaining, only I never wrote nothing. I've got so much to say, but I don't know what to say. I'm asking myself 5 times a day, Gary, what is it you want to say? It's my chance to say something about me and my life, and I don't know what it is. I've got a chance to say something, to write something about me and what I'd like to say. I keep asking myself, what is it? I won't shut up. I talk all the time. I can talk absolute bollocks. I'm still trying to figure out what it is I want to say. It's the most difficult thing to say, the truth. It's difficult to be yourself. I wanted to say something about not writing people off. It's not always their fault. I'm not saying that as a reason to give them an excuse for living the way they're living and fucking, you know. But I think people are really quick to wash their hands of people with addiction problems or alcohol problems or any mental health problems, you know, and it's wrong. And it will come back to bite society on the arse. Because if you keep ignoring it, it's going to grow and fester. And before long, you'll be the fucking outsiders. We'll have taken over.
That's brilliant. Thank you. It's so great to hear it again, because the theatre pieces slip away. And, you know, every time I hear the words again, it all comes back, the amazing shows that we've done. Just after that, after Secret Voices, you decided that you wanted to go to university and that you wanted to study creative writing. But it wasn't quite that straightforward, was it? So you had to do a couple of courses sort of to prepare you to go.
I thought it was going to be that straightforward. I remember thinking, I'm going to give these people the pleasure of my time. And I rung and said, I'm coming. And they went, well, they asked for what qualifications I had. And I said, none. And they said, it's not going to be. You need to get some. They didn't say you need to get some. They said, phone your local college. And then I phoned you, and I phoned the college. Someone got back to me. I spoke to you. You got back to me. And they all said the same thing.
Yeah.
A, B and C, you know, if you want to get to D.
Yeah. So you basically had to go back and start from scratch and do, I think, pre-access course and then access course.
Had to do maths and English, real basic.
Yeah.
And I say real basic, but to me that was like, and I don't know how I passed them. And I was telling someone the other day, I said, I don't know how I passed them. Because I haven't got a fucking clue what it was about. You know, if someone said, no, answer that question, no, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I must have listened during the class. Because, you know, again, I thought I was the bottom of the class. But I've since met lots of people I was on that course with, and they never made it.
Mm.
You know.
And then from there, you applied to go to Birkbeck.
And that's gone an access course after that. And then, I applied to Birkbeck.
And when you started, your first year was online, wasn't it, because of COVID?
Yeah.
But last week, you actually went up there for your first session. How was that? Just bearing in mind, like, I'm just, in my head, I'm just holding that image of you arriving at the writing workshop 17 years ago, and then here you are. It's sort of a dream, really fulfilling
the whole
a dream.
thing about it. So I applied to other universities, and they offered me places unconditionally. And Birkbeck wanted, you know, Oxford, Cambridge type marks. And I remember, I went there to the open day. It's the only open day I went to, and they sat us down, and the guy said, "Yeah, you're all undergrad. Has anyone got any questions?" I went, "Yeah, I have. Why haven't you read my personal statement?" And he went, "Well," he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, innit, I've told you I'm uneducated, and I learnt to read and write in prison, and you've asked for these ridiculous, you know." And then he got the head of the department, and I was emotional. But he came and said, "Listen, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. Give me your email, and but it's going to be all right," he said.
And they let you in.
Yeah. And so on Thursday I went to my first class. And that's another thing. I never really gave it much thought about how difficult it would be to get from Bournemouth to London, study and get home, you know. However, if you want to do something, it's easy. And I want to do it. And it was magical. I know London reasonably well. However, the fact that when I was pulled up to see where I was, and I was right outside the building, was quite magical. And then I went off and found my classroom, but I never really found it. It felt like I was just forced to go a certain way, up some stairs, along a corridor, bump, and there I was. And there was, I recognised faces from online. However, I think there was 4 classes of people I would have recognised from online. And I walked in and the lady said, "Should you be here?" I said, "I don't know, this is my name." And she went, "Yeah, you should be here." Yeah.
She just arrived and walked straight in and there you were. It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it? Does it feel an extraordinary thing?
Yeah, definitely magical, definitely. And I'm not making it up when I say I parked up outside and walked straight into a place and walked, into a room and said, "I think I'm not sure." She said, "You are?" And I said, "Are you in this class?" I said, "I don't know, maybe." And she asked my name and she went, "Yeah, you are."
Amazing.
Sit down.
What writing are you going to do, Gary? What kind of writing?
I don't know. However, I've been told that all art's political, so...
It is. I mean, the fact that we run this project, it's a political project because we're giving voice to the unheard and we're...
This is all new to me, this aspect of it is all new.
Well, it's about believing in people and giving a voice to people who don't normally have a voice as well, because art is political. And there's been a very narrow band of people who've had access to making art and consuming art, actually. And that's really what we're trying to dismantle. There's another piece of writing. It's something that you wrote at one of the writing workshops, which gives a taste of your kind of writing. I just wondered if you'd read it to us, a piece about Johnny.
Johnny wears pretty bands around his neck to hide his Adam's apple. He says his has a constant erection. Poor old Johnny is by far, without a shadow of a doubt, with or without a phallic-like Adam's apple, the least ladylike ladyboy on the planet. His specially tailor-made patent leather high heels could do more damage than a demolition man's pickaxe. If Johnny, or Jenny, as he or she likes to be known, wasn't so much like a barn door, people could laugh at him. I laugh at him, or her, all the time. Johnny's my business partner and dearest friend. We went to school together and he saved my life once. Jenny thinks I would like to fuck her if I wasn't married. Jenny's funny too. They've been told that they have weeks left. So it feels like I'm losing 2 people. And I don't know what to say to either of them.
That's wonderful. It's great to hear. I love that piece. You do so much with so few lines. It's just another thought as well that, all those years that you've been coming to the workshop and that you've been coming now to the lock-ins. We do this monthly lock-in where we develop the work. You give the most amazing feedback. And I think, actually by listening to people's work and giving feedback on people's work, it bears a relationship to writing, and you might not have read every single book that there is published, but wow, that engagement that you have with language, you really do know what you're doing, and I've always really valued that incredible feedback that you've brought into the room.
It's funny that on the course people have said, "Gary, you're very intuitive," because that's what it was about. And it's especially in poetry and stuff like that. I've got, that reminds me, So maybe I have got a level of understanding of writing.
Undoubtedly. You have undoubtedly. And you've actually got more years of experience than you think, which is brilliant. So, Gary, it's lovely to chat just as you're off to do this degree in person, and I just hope you enjoy it. And honestly, they're really lucky to have you, because I was so lucky to have you in my workshop all those years. I envy them.
Thanks, Nell.
And thank you. Thanks for everything.